Imagine waking up in a world where summers are unbearable, rains come furiously or vanish altogether, and food prices skyrocket like never before. Does it sound like a sci-fi scenario? Well, know that it is already a reality for millions of people. While many ignore or underestimate climate change, its effects are becoming increasingly tangible and relentless. And here's the most controversial part. Most of us contribute daily to exacerbating this problem, even without realizing it. If you think this issue is distant, think about its impact on your everyday life. From the air you breathe to the choices you make at the supermarket, everything is connected to a planet that cries out for balance. But here's a liberating truth. The solution isn't as complex as it seems. There are simple and powerful actions you can take right now, actions that not only help the planet, but also transform your quality of life. In this video, you'll discover why climate change is so devastating, how it's already shaping our future, and most importantly, how you can become part of the solution. Get ready to dive into a topic that might seem frightening, but also carries the opportunity to make history with your choices. After all, do you want to be a spectator or a protagonist of this change? Keep watching and learn how to turn concern into action. The climate is the conductor of life on Earth, dictating the rhythm of the seasons, the behavior of ecosystems, and even human habits. Unlike the weather, which is transient like a fleeting mood, the climate reflects long-term patterns. Think of it as a detailed portrait of a region's personality. Some are warm and sunny, others cold and temperamental. It's thanks to these characteristics that we know where to grow rice or build ski resorts. Without the climate, our planning would be like navigating without a compass. But why does the climate matter so much? Imagine trying to plant an apple orchard in the middle of the desert or establish a ski resort in the tropics. Sounds absurd, right? That's because the climate regulates everything around us, from animal habitats to economic choices. That's why places like the Brazilian Cerrado, with its alternation of droughts and rains, are so unique and require specific agricultural practices. We can't ignore the influence of the climate, even if we don't notice its presence in our daily lives. And it doesn't stop there. The climate isn't just an external agent. It interacts directly with the choices we make. Have you noticed how architecture changes according to the climate? Houses in cold climates have fireplaces. In the tropics, high ceilings and ventilation. Even cuisine is influenced by the climate. Warm chicken soup in the winter, refreshing salads in the summer. These examples show that the climate goes beyond being just a statistic. It shapes how we live. Furthermore, the climate is crucial for maintaining ecosystems in balance. Mangroves, for example, rely on tropical climates to filter nutrients and protect the coastline. Sudden changes can destabilize everything from fishing to biodiversity. And let's face it, you don't want to miss out on fresh shrimp for lunch because of a climate imbalance, right? The relationship is as delicate as a recipe. Stir too much, and the outcome is ruined. The impact of the climate also goes straight to the economy. Agricultural crops, tourism, infrastructure, everything depends on this stability. Remember how monsoons in India dictate rice harvests that feed millions, or how extreme cold can shut down airports, delaying flights and causing financial losses. Not to mention the costs of rebuilding after extreme weather events. Subtly, the climate affects each of our wallets. Now consider health. Intense heat waves can cause dehydration and exhaustion, while harsh winters exacerbate respiratory problems. It's no coincidence that we see flu outbreaks in the cold and sunburns in the heat. Even tropical diseases like dengue and malaria are directly linked to the climate. Therefore, protecting the climatic balance isn't just an environmental issue. It's also a public health measure. With this in mind, the importance of the climate becomes crystal clear. It sustains life. However, when we talk about climate change, we realize that this balance is increasingly at risk. The changes in the climate affect everything from biodiversity to human survival, which leads us to reflect. Are we prepared to handle these transformations? Climate change is like that inconvenient guest who arrives unannounced and disrupts the entire routine of the house. It refers to long-term transformations in climate patterns, involving temperature, precipitation, and even winds. But these changes don't happen overnight. They may take centuries, but the impact is profound. Imagine, for instance, a tropical forest gradually turning into a savanna. This changes everything from the vegetation to the animals that live there. To better understand, we need to separate the natural from the human. Natural climate changes have always existed. Glacial and interglacial cycles, such as those explained by Milankovitch cycles, are examples of this. They show how small variations in Earth's orbit can cause huge alterations in the climate. This is how the Earth experienced the ice ages, periods when mammoths ruled. But now the story is different. Human activity has accelerated this process. The Arctic is the clearest thermometer of these changes. The loss of sea ice is alarming. When ice melts, less sunlight is reflected back into space, which further warms the planet. This phenomenon, known as the albedo effect, creates a vicious cycle of warming. It's like removing the brakes from a bicycle on a downhill slope. The result? Changes that affect not just polar bears, but ecosystems and even human communities in coastal regions. It's worth noting that the impact of climate change is not uniform. Some places become drier, while others face torrential rains. It's like a chess game. One displaced piece causes chain reactions. In the Mediterranean, for example, increasingly severe droughts may occur, while the Sahara Desert might experience significant flooding. This affects not only the local climate, but also the rain cycles that supply other regions. These changes also affect the oceans. Rising water temperatures cause more hurricanes and cyclones, which are powered by the heat. The Atlantic Ocean, for instance, has already recorded more intense storms, putting coastal communities at risk. Imagine the impact on island nations, where people live almost at sea level. Climate change has no borders. Its effects are global. And now, with this scenario outlined, the question remains, how do these changes manifest in our daily lives? More frequent heat waves, prolonged droughts, intense rains. All of this is already happening. This is where the next point comes into play, showing how climate patterns are being transformed in ways few could have imagined. The world is becoming hotter and more unpredictable, and this is reflected in the climate patterns. Heat waves are not only becoming more intense, but also more frequent. Those living in large cities may have already felt the asphalt boiling like a frying pan at noon. This is not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. In 2023, for instance, cities in Europe set temperature records, with people seeking refuge in pools and air-conditioned spaces. This extreme heat affects everything from health to work productivity. And it's not just the heat that concerns us. Severe droughts are expanding, turning fertile regions into barren lands. The Mediterranean, known for its stunning landscapes, is facing prolonged droughts that jeopardize crops like olives and grapes. In the Sahel region of Africa, the situation is even more critical, with entire communities struggling to find potable water. These changes force populations to migrate, intensifying humanitarian crises. While some regions face water scarcity, others deal with the opposite, devastating floods. Tropical storms, like hurricanes and cyclones, have grown stronger due to the rise in ocean temperatures. In the United States, Hurricane Ian in 2022 left trails of destruction, while Asian countries like the Philippines faced cyclones that displaced millions. These extreme events are no longer rarities. They have become the new normal in a continuously warming world. Another curious effect of climate change is the alteration in atmospheric and oceanic currents. The weakening of the jet stream, which regulates climate in various parts of the planet, is causing extreme phenomena. Harsh winters in some regions and scorching summers in others are direct results of these changes. In the United States, for example, unusual winter storms have frozen entire states, while others face blistering heat. Surprising changes are also occurring in areas that were once extremely predictable. Rain in arid regions, like the Sahara Desert, is defying climatic logic. In 2021, images of hail covering the ground in Saudi Arabia circulated around the world, leaving scientists puzzled. These events show that the displacement of air masses and changes in wind patterns can create unexpected phenomena, affecting ecosystems and human communities. This reorganization of the global climate affects not only nature, but also our ability to plan for the future. Farmers, for example, are facing unpredictable harvests. An out-of-season rain can destroy entire plantations, while prolonged droughts make cultivation difficult. These alterations in climate patterns are turning agriculture into a challenge that requires innovation and resilience. Have you ever thought about what the world would be like without coffee or chocolate due to these changes? The impacts of these changes are everywhere and demand immediate action. However, to fully understand the severity of the situation, it's important to look at the consequences they bring to ecosystems, human health, the economy, and even sea levels. After all, every climate change leaves an indelible mark on our planet. Climate changes are like falling dominoes, triggering a sequence of impacts that affect all aspects of life on the planet. In ecosystems, the loss of biodiversity is one of the most alarming consequences. Imagine a rainforest where species are disappearing faster than we can catalog them. This imbalance affects even the food chain. When a pollinator, like bees, is impacted, entire crops can suffer, and with them, our food supply. In the oceans, acidification caused by the increase in carbon dioxide is a growing problem. Corals, which support entire marine ecosystems, are being devastated. Without them, species such as fish and crustaceans lose shelter and food. For seafood lovers, this means less variety and higher prices. The chain of impacts is long and profound, starting at the bottom of the ocean and reaching up to markets and restaurants. The impacts on human health are also visible and concerning. Intense heat waves lead to respiratory and cardiovascular issues, especially in vulnerable populations. In large cities, the combination of extreme heat and pollution creates a sort of toxic cauldron. Moreover, tropical diseases such as dengue and malaria are expanding to areas where they were previously rare. Adapting the healthcare system to deal with these new realities is already a challenge in many countries. The global economy also feels the weight of climate changes. Natural disasters are generating billion-dollar costs, from rebuilding infrastructure to losses in agriculture. An example is California, which struggles with increasingly frequent and devastating wildfires. These events affect not just local production, but also global markets, as agricultural regions are responsible for supplying food to various parts of the world. Among the most visible effects is the rise in sea level. The melting of polar ice caps and the warming of the oceans are the main culprits. Coastal communities are being forced to adapt or migrate, a phenomenon known as climate refugees. In countries like Bangladesh, millions of people are already facing the loss of their homes and livelihoods due to constant flooding. It is a humanitarian crisis in the making. The impacts also manifest in the form of extreme weather events, which are becoming more intense and unpredictable. Storms, hurricanes, and prolonged droughts do not recognize borders. In 2022, historic floods in Pakistan left millions of people homeless, a reminder that the force of nature, fueled by climatic imbalance, cannot be ignored. These events not only destroy infrastructure, but also destabilize entire economies. Faced with these impacts, it is clear that we need to act to mitigate these changes and create sustainable solutions. One of the most promising approaches is the use of regenerative practices, especially in agriculture. But what exactly does it mean to regenerate? And how can this become our greatest defense against the advance of climate change? When we talk about climate change, it often seems that the solution is out of our reach, something reserved for scientists or politicians. But the truth is that each of us can make a difference, starting by supporting sustainable practices, such as regenerative agriculture. This approach goes beyond traditional cultivation, restoring the soil, capturing carbon, and promoting a healthy cycle between man and nature. And you know what's amazing? You can support this even if you are not a farmer, by buying food from small producers who adopt these practices. But what exactly is regenerative agriculture? Think of it as an agricultural system that works with nature rather than against it. While conventional agriculture often degrades the soil, regenerative agriculture enriches it. It uses techniques like crop rotation, no-till planting, and agroforestry integration to create fertile and healthy soils. Imagine a field that, instead of needing chemical fertilizers, nourishes itself naturally through a balanced ecosystem. It is the kind of innovation that restores harmony with the planet. Regenerative agriculture is also a powerful tool against climate change. By improving soil health, it captures more carbon from the atmosphere, reducing greenhouse gases. Moreover, these practices increase resilience to climate changes. For example, regenerated soils retain more water, helping crops to survive periods of drought. This means that even in a scenario of extreme weather events, there is a real chance of maintaining food production. Did you know that this approach is highly adaptable? From large farms to small urban backyards, the principles of regeneration can be applied. Imagine transforming a piece of your garden into a productive space, with vegetables and herbs grown sustainably. This not only contributes to your food supply, but also helps the planet. If you don't have space, supporting community garden initiatives is another practical way to be part of this movement. Adopting or supporting regenerative practices is more than an environmental act. It's a survival strategy. The resilience generated by this model benefits everyone, from the farmer to the end consumer. Think about rural communities facing severe droughts. With regeneration, they can continue to grow and feed their families, while preserving natural resources for future generations. It's a clear example of how regenerative agriculture goes beyond a temporary solution. It is a commitment to the future. Even if you are not directly involved in the field, you can use your voice to amplify the importance of these practices. Sharing knowledge, encouraging debate, and supporting public policies that promote regeneration are powerful actions. Think about initiatives like organic fairs or local cooperatives. Every product bought there is a vote for practices that respect the environment and combat the advance of climate change. Finally, it's important to remember that while regenerative agriculture is a crucial piece, it's just one part of the puzzle. Building a sustainable future requires us to rethink our choices and implement solutions that truly work. And speaking of which, why not explore further how you can transform your actions into real impact? The next step is to understand how to connect all this with a lifestyle that benefits both the planet and yourself. Now that you have understood the impacts of climate change and how you can act, the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? The planet is calling for help, and the solutions are within your reach. Will you wait for governments and large corporations to take the reins? Or will you start making a difference in your everyday life? Think about the simple actions you can adopt now. Supporting regenerative agriculture, reducing waste, or even planting a small garden in your backyard. Are you ready to take the first step? Imagine what it would be like if every person took on a bit of the responsibility. Changes would start to appear in the soil, the water, and the air we breathe. And how about inspiring others around you? Share this knowledge, mobilize your community, and turn your vision of the future into reality. If you want to continue learning about topics like this and discover new ways to help the planet, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. That way, you never miss an opportunity to act. Remember, climate change may seem like a huge challenge, but together, our actions have the power to change the course of history. Next, I will share a video about regenerative agriculture. See you soon. Let's move towards a bountiful Earth.